and welcome. Tonight, INEC announces APGA candidate and incumbent Governor Chukwuma Soludo as winner of Anambra governorship election. President Tinubu hails Professor Soludo's re-election, calls it proof of visionary leadership. ADC candidate John Nwosu rejects Anambra election results, cites alleged vote buying. And Typhoon Fongwang hits the Philippines, leaving 2 dead and displacing over 900,000 people. We begin from Anambra State, where the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has officially declared Professor Chukwuma Soludo of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, the victor of Saturday's governorship election. Professor Soludo, who's the incumbent governor, secured a commanding win of 422,664 votes, outpacing his nearest challenger, Nicholas Ukachukwu of the All Progressives Congress, who garnered 99,445 votes. The chief returning officer, Professor Edoba Omorogie, announced the results following the collision of votes from all the 21 local government areas across Anambra.
It's a calm and orderly atmosphere at the INEC Collation Center in Awka, where results from the 21 local government areas were received and tallied under the supervision of the state returning officer, Professor Edoba Omorogie.
Before me is the result for...
One after another, collation officers from each local government area present their results, with Ihiala local government bringing in the final figures.
Party ADC 232, Party APC 3284.
After verifying the figures, Professor Omorogie formally declares the All Progressives Grand Alliance candidate, Governor Chukwuma Soludo, as duly elected with a total of 422,664 votes.
I therefore declare that Soludo Charles Chukwuma of the APGA, I will satisfy the requirement of the law and score the highest number of votes in this election, is hereby declared the winner and return elected.
Receiving the certificate of return on behalf of the party, APGA National Chairman Sly Ezeokenwa describes the victory as an endorsement of Governor Soludo's development strides and a renewed call for service.
The Anambra came out en masse to repose their trust and faith in Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo as the leader who is going to take them to the next level in Anambra State, to the Eldorado of development.
While some election observers commend the conduct of the poll and the collation process, others, including opposition figures, raise concerns about aspects of the exercise, urging INEC to address identified lapses in future elections.
We are very impressed seeing that the environment was stable, the environment was peaceful, it was very convivial to encourage and evoke interest of the electorate, and that led to proper electorate turnout towards casting the ballot. So we are very impressed with that.
The process is that the beavers will capture you, and now that is what will actually permit you to go and vote. But the given situation where we begin to talk about overvoting in some polling units, it now tells you that something is, was actually wrong.
With his re-election, Governor Soludo now faces the task of deepening reforms, sustaining infrastructure renewal, and delivering on his promise of good governance to the people of Anambra State. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Unexpectedly, Professor Chukwuma Soludo responded to his electoral triumph soon after the official results were announced. Speaking to a gathering of supporters at his country home in Isofia, Governor Soludo hailed the victory as historic, marking a memorable milestone in his political journey.
This is a moment to say congratulations to Anambra. You have spoken. 4 years ago, you spoke. You gave us your mandate. And then, of course, Anambra experimented the first time with beavers in that election. Extremely very low turnout. You elected us with 112,000 votes. In this one, you spoke loudly. This election and this victory is not just victory, it is history made. Big history. Because in the history of Anambra's politics, you look at the bit in terms of the percentage of registered voters that voted in this election, about 22%. Never before. You've broken the 20% glass ceiling, as it were. In terms of percentage of votes actually also made to any incumbent. This is the third time a governor has been re-elected in Anambra's history since the beginning of this republic, since 1999. In 2010, you re-elected a governor with about 31% of the votes cast. In 2017, you re-elected a governor with 56% of the votes cast. In this one, you were very emphatic, very, very emphatic, by re-electing a governor. Yours sincerely, and my deputy, Dr. Onyeka Chukwu-Ibezim, with 73% of the votes cast.
Governor Soludo, who pledged to deliver even more for the people in his second term, also expressed gratitude to the President, INEC, and security agencies for their pivotal roles in ensuring a smooth and peaceful election.
A sense of gratitude. Gratitude to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, for being a very true Democrat. He's demonstrated very firmly, he said so, severally, at all, meaning to guarantee free, fair, transparent election. And so we commend you and thank you, Mr. President, for being a very true Democrat. I realize that we are in a true multi-party democracy. Let the votes count, and the people spoke loudly here in Anambra. To the Independent National Electoral Commission, I must very specifically thank you, and thank in particular the new INEC chairman, Professor Joash Ojo Amopitan, SAN. This is your very first outing. As the saying goes, you don't have a second chance to create a first impression, and I am very excited that your very first impression is a very emphatic one. INEC delivered. And I must say, put it on record, that since I've been participating actively in the electoral process here in Anambra, particularly since maybe 2017, when you started, experimenting with technology, every election here in Anambra has been getting better and better and better. And it is fair to say that this is the best that you have organized so far in Anambra. I want to say it again and again loudly, that with this trust, in partnership with all our stakeholders, in partnership with you in the Anambra, in partnership with religious leaders, with our traditional and community leaders, with our traders, businessmen and women, in partnership with the petty traders, the hawkers, the wheelbarrow pushers, in partnership with the ordinary men and women of the Anambra, we, over the next 4 years, can say loudly that we ain't seen nothing yet. We ain't seen nothing. As I promised you, we're turning on to Gear 4, beginning from March.
And other reactions to the election results were mixed, ranging from jubilant celebrations by the governor's party loyalists to measured responses from some of the other contestants. While many lauded the conduct of that election, others expressed differing opinions.
The atmosphere is charged at Isofia, the country home of Governor Chukwuma Soludo, as ABGA stalwarts and people of the community troop into Governor Soludo's residence to celebrate the governor's re-election victory. Dance and merriment holds sway as the governor joins them in the dancing. Some of the stakeholders said the victory translates to a better future for Anambra State and the expansion of ABGA as a political party.
He has rebranded this party. Okay? ABGA has a completely new reputation amongst parties right now. Sure-footed in the southeast, we expect that the party will go to other states.
You can see that everybody was there for him. Nobody was playing to the gallery. Because the man is so real, he's an enigma, a phenomenon.
Meanwhile, some of the candidates have also been reacting to the development, while Mr. Nicholas Ukachukwu of the APC appreciates his running mate, Senator Uche Ekunife, and his supporters. It discloses that he's still collating information that will determine his next line of action. Mr. George Monghalo of the Labour Party, however, rejects the outcome of the election.
We are still collecting information and data from our different supporters, party agents, and then both from both state, local government, ward, and polling booths. It's when we have all these collective information together that will determine what's next in and what next to do. And then also, that's for me. Also, I also have to consult my party at that point also to know what next they want us to do.
We can boldly say that the elections was not credible, were not free and fair. There was massive cases of vote buying across the entire state. In some instances, result sheets were not seen and voting was going on. Cases like that abound in many places.
The governor, however, has extended the hands of fellowship to his opponents to collaborate with him in taking Anambra State to the next level.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Anambra State Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo on his re-election, describing the victory as a strong endorsement of his visionary leadership. In a statement personally signed by him, the president says the Governor Soludo's decisive win in Saturday's election makes him only the third governor in the state's history to secure a second term. According to that statement, Professor Soludo's re-election reflects not only his forward-thinking leadership, but also the significant progress Anambra has achieved under his guidance. The president says, in part, "I commend Governor Soludo for bringing discipline, grace, brilliance, and a fresh perspective to governance in Anambra. Under his leadership, the state continues to shine as the light of the nation. The victory of the All Progressives Grand Alliance in this election underscores the vitality of our political system and demonstrates that success for any progressive and hard-working leader can hardly be hindered or denied." President Tinubu further asked Governor Soludo to approach his second term with magnanimity in encouraging collaboration with his electoral opponents and advancing the state's development. In part two, after the break, we have more on the Anambra State governorship election. Plus, Nigeria Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs rejects allegations of genocide against Christians, maintains there is no religious intolerance in the country. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television, broadcasting from Lagos. So, a reminder of our main stories. INEC announces ABGA candidate and incumbent Governor Chukwuma Soludo as winner of Anambra governorship election. President Tinubu hails Professor Soludo's re-election as proof of visionary leadership. ADC candidate John Nwosu rejects Anambra election results, cites alleged vote buying. And Typhoon Fengwang hits the Philippines, leaving 2 dead and displacing over 900,000 people. We now bring you more from the Anambra governorship election. One of the election contestants, John Nwosu of the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, has rejected the results, citing alleged vote buying as the basis for his objection. According to Mr. Nwosu, Saturday's election was a calculated subversion of the people's will, marred by widespread vote buying and blatant financial inducement at polling units across the state.
The result does not reflect the true position of our people. Considering the level of poverty in Anambra State today, somebody who has not eaten in the last 1 month, seeing 20,000 naira, we jump at it. So I just want to use this opportunity, to call all the parties concerned to make sure that what has happened in Anambra State is stopped for the future of our democracy. Otherwise, we are joking. Because starting from day one, we saw the state intimidating the opposition by asking everybody to pay 50 million naira before you can advertise. Otherwise, you can't put up any billboard. There is ban on oppositions going into the market to campaign. It's only the incumbent governor that goes into the market, does anything. There were prevention of meetings of opposition. So there is a lot that needs to be changed for our democracy to thrive.
The Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, NSCIA, has dismissed claims of a Christian genocide in the country, labeling them false, dangerous, and politically motivated. Speaking at the press conference in Abuja, the Council Secretary General, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, stated the allegations being circulated by certain Western media outlets and political actors are part of a coordinated effort to destabilize the country. Professor Oloyede also emphasized the violence in some regions of Nigeria stems from criminality, poverty, and climate-induced migration and not religious persecution.
What Nigeria faces is a complex and tragic security crisis that brings immeasurable pain to all its citizens, regardless of faith or ethnic persuasion. From Katsina to Borno, and from Benue to Plateau, as well as to Kaduna and Kwara, Nigeria bleeds through gruesome savagery against Muslims and Christians, imams and priests. These terrorists are not our representative. They are our mortal enemies. The world knows that some of the terrorist groups being paraded as Islamic are creation of some non-Muslim interests. For instance, it is publicly acknowledged that the United States of America created Al-Qaeda, which is being projected as Islamic. Also, recently, a U.S. Congressman, Perry, testified that the United States Agency for International Development was financing the activities of Boko Haram and other terrorist groups in Nigeria and elsewhere. In the Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and some parts of the Southwest, banditry is fueled by the overlapping factors of poverty, mass youth unemployment, drug abuse, porous borders, and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons.
President of Human Capital Africa and founder of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, has emphasized that Nigeria cannot achieve sustainable prosperity without moral renewal, robust institutions, functional markets, and citizens who refuse to accept mediocrity, injustice, or silence in the face of suffering. Speaking alongside other guests at the third edition of the Kingdom Lifestyle Conference, the former Minister of Education called on churches, businesses, and individuals to embrace moral leadership, build failing systems, confront corruption, and uphold the sanctity of human life as a cornerstone of national development.
Rather than building a republic with many smart people involved and invested,
the Kingdom Lifestyle Conference brings together spiritually grounded leaders committed to driving societal transformation. Organized by the Jesus World Changers Apostolic Mission, the third series focuses on using a biblical and market-oriented framework to address the roots of systemic poverty.
This indeed is clearly a divine call to action. Firmly a message for you and I to run with the strength and faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, manifesting kingdom lifestyle, entrenching kingdom's order of prosperity in the marketplace, inclusive of our respective places of assignment.
An honorary doctorate from the University of Agriculture.
Delivering the keynote address, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili examined the root causes of systemic poverty in Nigeria and across Africa. She argued that poverty extends beyond a lack of income and is instead the product of broken moral foundations, weak institutions, and dysfunctional markets.
The right kinds of frameworks that move countries from systemic poverty to sustainable prosperity, which is lasting prosperity, would require both moral capital and market functionality, rooted in biblical principles of stewardship, justice, and productivity.
The former Minister of Education laments that only a few Nigerians have spoken out against the nation's disregard for human life.
That silence, the collective failure of Nigerians to rally, demand justice, and hold leadership accountable is what has brought the country to this moral and reputational low point. When foreign leaders like President Donald Trump issue scathing warnings about genocide and the killing of Christians in Nigeria, it is not just a diplomatic embarrassment the way the people are seeing it. It is the direct consequence of our collective indifference.
if your heart is right.
The keynote address forms the basis for other speakers, whose sub-themes emphasize that faith-filled communication and kingdom mindset empower ethical action in the marketplace.
So the church is called upon as a marketplace of the kingdom to lead the church in redemptive communication. The kingdom mindset will see the real resource, and the real resource is your mind.
Speakers affirmed that Nigeria's journey to sustainable prosperity depends on citizens, institutions, and the church working together to value every life and uphold justice as the foundation for national development.
The twists and turns in the diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and the United States remain in the spotlight. Several observers are very concerned about the colorization of the war on terrorism from the lens of religion. But the question now, on the lips of many Nigerians, who is right and who is wrong? What is fact and what is fiction? What happens next and what is the aftermath? Tonight, Babajide Ogunsowo, who is the founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's chief data analyst, is here to share more facts and vital insight on the war on terrorism and the religious concerns surrounding it. Thank you very much, Babajide, for joining us on the News at 10.
Yeah, good evening.
And is there any evidence there is a religious war ongoing in Nigeria, and do we have actual facts?
So we'll speak to the facts tonight. We'll speak to a lot of hard facts tonight, but I'd like to start from a slightly different perspective, and that's because exactly around this time, 4 decades ago, the world was in a state of shock. Exactly on this day in Moscow at the Tchaikovsky Center, the world saw a new world champion, the youngest champion ever in the world, emerged. Garry Kasparov. And as I said, according to the commentators then, the world was put in a state of shock at 22-year-old Garry Kasparov. But today we're not talking about that state of shock or exactly where Garry Kasparov is today. Tonight there are 3 states I want to talk about, which is very important to what you've talked about. The first is the state of religion in Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. The second is the state of the statistics on violent extremism in Nigeria and around the world. And the third is perhaps the most important, the state of the solution. So let's start by looking at the state of religion in Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world, because it allows us to understand exactly what is going on. What is in front of us is based on the Pew Research when they asked Christians how much is religion important in their lives. We can clearly see 82% of Christians in Nigeria say religion is important in their lives. Look at in the UK, only 11%. In the US, 68%. France, 12%. Spain, 30%. The summary here is that in Nigeria and in a lot of other parts in Africa, religion, Christians say religion plays an important role in their lives. Why is this important? We can clearly see a lot of the European countries where Christians say yes, religion plays an important role, but not as important as it is in other parts of the country. Look at in the US, when Christians were asked by the Pew Research Center, 68% of Christians living in the US said religion plays an important role in their lives. However, what we clearly see from the evidence in front of us is that Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia stands out by Christians saying religion is very important in their lives. Now keep that in mind, because the second thing coming up is also quite important. And the second thing is, when Christians were also asked that countries with the most Christians in 2020, what we clearly see is that among the top 10 countries in the world, Nigeria is on that list, countries where Christians rank the highest. But why is this important? Nigeria is in that list of top 10 countries in the world where you have the most Christians, but Nigeria is also on that list, and if we continue letting that go, Nigeria is also on that list of top 10 countries in the world where you have the most Muslim population. Now, why is this important? And let me make myself very clear. Among the countries you've seen, top 10 countries in the world where you have the most Christians, and top 10 countries where you have the most Muslims, Nigeria is the only country on that list. Every other country isn't found. So Nigeria finds a peculiar place where we're in the list of top 10 countries with the most Christians, and we're in the list of 10 top countries with the most Muslims. And that is one of the reasons why we see a lot of conflict. We have a strong Christian population and we have a strong Muslim population based on research by the Pew Research Center. In summary, the evidence shows that in Africa, there's no other continent in the world that has as many Christians. You heard me right. There's no other continent in the world that has as many Christians as Africa. 1 in 3 Christians live in Africa. That's the evidence.
But is there any data or that disaggregates or maybe separates in Nigeria by the religion of the victim? Maybe separates the killings in Nigeria by the religion of the victim?
So it depends on what data you, first of all, really want to look at. First of all, let's take a look at the data from the International Institute of Religious Freedom, because that's one of the data that the stakeholders in the US are pointing to. And that's because from their research in 2023, they claim that out of 4,336 persons that were victims of non-state actors that were killed, 88% of that figure were Christians. They also say that out of the 4,153 persons that were abducted in 2023 in Nigeria, 77% of those numbers are Christians. So they point to the fact that majority of those that are being killed and kidnapped are Christians. That's the first point. Now the second point is the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom as well. If you take a look at their 2025 report, they use the word 30,000 Fulani bandits operating in the northwestern region of Nigeria. That is their own information that they put out, that 30,000 Fulani bandits are operating in the northwestern region. Another report from Open Doors Watch List as well, they provide some information about the top 50 countries where they claim Christians are being persecuted. And from their report, they say that Nigeria is the second country in Africa where you have most Christians being persecuted, and number 7 in the world. So those are the information that we as a country and as a nation have to look at, because those reports are global reports, and those are the reports that shape and influence the global perception and narrative about Nigeria, and we have to keep an eye on those reports to make sure that we significantly get better results.
All right, so but now that we're here, what are the most critical steps that the government can actually take going forward?
It's still by looking at the numbers, and the government says that it's going to be looking at the numbers. We look at the numbers from the armed conflict location and event data on violent extremist incidents in Nigeria. And if you take a look at that, their report looking at number of persons that have been involved in terrorism this year and persons that have been killed January to October, it allows us to know which states we should really focus on and which states are we getting a lot of fatalities. That report points to 3 core states: Borno, Zamfara, Katsina. What you notice by what's in front of us, majority of the states in the north central are in that list, majority of the states in the northwest region are in that list. However, Borno, Zamfara, Katsina stands out on top. What is common to these 3 states? Borno shares close borders with Lake Chad, so we clearly see a lot of smuggling and a lot of activities going on between Borno and the Lake Chad region. What is common with Zamfara and Katsina? Zamfara, Katsina share borders with the Republic of Niger. So yes, we see a lot of activities, illegal activities going on within Zamfara, Katsina. But why is that persisting? Because of proximity to Niger. So what is clear is we significantly have to improve our internal operations, but we also have to significantly improve our operations across the border. But beyond this, and it is about the solutions. And yes, we understand that the state of inequality has to be addressed. We understand that the state of justice has to be addressed. But if there's one solution we need to speak to, it is that we have to get more children to school. And what do I mean? The evidence shows that 65% of Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa have no formal schooling compared with 30% of Christians. The summary is a lot of Muslims, based on Pew's Research Center, a lot of Muslims are not going into school in Nigeria, and we need to make sure that we get more children into school. And
all right, but maybe you just take this in 30 seconds. What are the challenges the Nigerian military is facing, especially in ending the war against terrorism? We're seeing change of guards, but what should be done?
In the final analysis, the evidence we really are putting all of this together shows that what we are facing in Nigeria goes beyond the war on terrorism. So the reason why this has persisted, Anne, is because we keep calling it a war on terrorism, but a war on terrorism is just a subset of the sort of war we are facing. We are facing a war on our survival, we are facing a war on unity, we are facing a war on our future. However, if we keep classifying it as a war on terrorism, we'll get the narrative wrong. A war on terrorism is just one of the subset of the wars of the larger war Nigeria faces. And I think if you take a look at the recent statement by the new Chief of Defense Staff, as you mentioned, he seems to understand it better as well, by clearly seeing that if we take a religious stance, we will not get it, we'll get it wrong. And his position is, we are one people, Muslim and Christian. The real enemy is anyone who profits when we are divided.
All right.
And a lot of people are profiting, and they're profiting based on calling it a wrong war.
Thank you very much, Chief Data Analyst, and of course, founder of Leadership by Data. Thank you so much for your time on the News at 10. Babajide Ogunsowo.
We'll continue this next week.
We will. And still ahead on the News at 10, Nigerian Army holds remembrance service in honor of former Chief of Army Staff, Taoreed Lagbaja. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The Nigerian Army, alongside family members of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, today gathered in Abuja for a solemn one-year remembrance church service commemorating 12 months since his death on November the 5th, 2025. The service celebrated General Lagbaja's life of duty, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to national security. Attended by military leaders, family, friends, and well-wishers, the ceremony honored his enduring legacy as a disciplined, compassionate, and exemplary commander. Our correspondent Benny Ark reports.
This one-year interdenominational church service held in Abuja is in honor of a former chief of army staff who died on the 5th of November 2024. Top military commanders, including the Chief of Defense Staff, former service chiefs, wife to the former Chief of Army Staff, Maria Lagbaja, family members, members of the Officers' Wives Association, and eminent personalities from the civil and diplomatic communities are in attendance to pay respects.
So the three mighty men moved through the camp of Philistines.
The service featured scriptural readings, hymnals, and song ministrations, all in reflection of his life and service. The sermon titled "A Good Soldier of Jesus Christ" emphasized purposeful living, with General Lagbaja's tenure and character cited as exemplars of faithful stewardship.
The consensus is that he was a good soldier. He was well trained and had trained others. In fact, one of his legacies was that soldiers or personnel need to be trained and be made ready operationally. And we all know that any army that trains in peace will sweat less in war.
In his remarks, the Chief of Defense Staff described him as a professional soldier who left an impactful legacy.
He was a soldier of soldiers, very courageous. He led from the front all through, and he was a champion of soldiers' welfare and well-being. And from what I know about him, I'm very sure that as we speak, he's right in heaven, probably looking at all of us with his trademark smile. I'm not God, but from the little I know about him, I'm sure he must have passed that test.
The service peaked with a special thanksgiving and prayers for his family.
We believe that he served us so well, and we believe that he is in your kingdom.
Lieutenant General Terry Lagbaja, the 23rd Chief of Army Staff, appointed in June 2023, is remembered as a leader who served with distinction until his demise. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
The movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, MOSOP, has launched activities to mark the 30th anniversary of the Ogoni struggle, paying tribute to members who lost their lives during the campaign for environmental justice. As part of the commemoration, the group visited the families of fallen members, many who remain unacknowledged by both the community and the government, and laid wreaths in their honor. The wreath was also placed at the Ken Saro-Wiwa Memorial Park in his hometown, where his family renewed calls for the full exoneration of the activist who was executed in 1995.
While the Ogoni struggle has become a global symbol of peaceful resistance, only a few names, most notably Ken Saro-Wiwa and the 8 others executed alongside him in 1995, appear to have gained international recognition. Yet, behind these famous figures are dozens of unsung heroes whose sacrifices remain largely unacknowledged. Many of these lesser-known MOSOP members were killed during military raids and security operations in 1993, leaving behind families who still live in poverty and neglect. In an effort to comfort these families and reaffirm their place in the Ogoni legacy, MOSOP is embarking on a series of visits to their homes ahead of the 30th anniversary of the struggle on Monday, November 10th, 2025.
We are this year deciding that we must give real honor to those persons, not just the 13, but the over 2,000 people that sacrificed their lives for Ogoni to be where we are today.
In each of the homes visited, the story is the same: pain, hardship, and a deep sense of abandonment. A wreath-laying ceremony is also held at the Ken Saro-Wiwa Memorial Park in his community, where the family renewed their call for his exoneration.
I've told them long ago that I want my brother's name exonerated by the trial of that case. If you are going an award, so what is left again? Exonerate his name.
Earlier, MOSOP held a public lecture in Port Harcourt, where the keynote speaker underscores the enduring relevance of the Ogoni struggle as a model for environmental and human rights advocacy. The event drew solidarity from various ethnic leaders, including the president of the Ijaw National Congress.
our heroes and our sheroes are certainly matters because they all met their untimely deaths, laboring to highlight the sufferings of the Ogoni people, who sit on a treasure trove of superabundant quantities of oil and gas, but having nothing to show for it, except, as Ken himself put it, the blunt consequences of environmental degradation. We therefore reaffirm and amplify the demand of the Ogoni people and the broader Niger Delta. Firstly, we join the global call for formal exoneration of Ken Sarowiwa and the Ogoni 9.
As the Ogonis, comprising 4 local government areas, mark the 30th anniversary of their struggle for environmental justice, MUSAP is pledging renewed support and assistance for the families and its fallen and forgotten members as part of its broader commitment to preserving the ideal for which they gave their lives.
Governor Ubasani of Kaduna State is reaffirming both his administration and that of President Bola Tinubu's that it will continue to place mechanized agriculture at the heart of efforts to drive economic growth, create jobs, and reduce poverty. The governor, who was speaking during the 47th regular meeting of the National Council on Agriculture and Food Security held in Abuja, says the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has called on government at all levels to embrace digital agriculture as a key strategy for tackling food insecurity in Nigeria.
To boost food production and address the nation's growing food security challenges, the National Council on Agriculture and Food Security has convened this meeting in Kaduna State to review institutional reforms and progress made at both federal and state levels, harmonize strategies, and foster collaboration among all stakeholders. Commissioners of Agriculture from the 36 states of the Federation, development partners, research institutes, and farmers' associations are attending the meeting, which focuses on driving innovation and mechanization in farming activities.
To accelerate this transformation, a strategic and concrete investment in digital agriculture and technology transfer is no longer an option, but a necessity. The future of food security hinges on our ability to harness data, connectivity, and cross-cutting edge technologies to empower every farmer.
I think that we need to sort of look at how can we help to bring fertilizer prices down in the commercial market as well as through government schemes. The government schemes are great.
The federal government reiterates its commitment to food security in Nigeria. Just as Governor Ubasani says, his government will continue to align with national policies aimed at expanding food production.
Mr. President's charge remains very, very clear. I quote, "Our farmers must transition from hoes and cutlasses to tractors and harvesters." Food sufficiency is the first currency of national stability.
In 2 years, we have expanded agricultural budget from merely 1.8 billion in 2023 to over 90 billion in 2025. That is from 0.5% in 2023 to 12.5% in 2025.
Highlight of the meeting is the presentation of award to some farmers for their contribution to food security, as well as the unveiling of an agriculture journal.
The Joint Committees of the National Assembly on Cybersecurity, Digital Information Technology has reaffirmed their commitment to ensuring the passage of the National Digital Economy and E-Governance Bill 2025 for the benefit of all Nigerians. According to the committees, the proposed legislation aligns with the presidential agenda of reforming the economy for sustainable growth and promoting inclusive governance through digitalization, information and communication technology.
Members from the red and green chambers of the National Assembly are in Lagos to deliberate on smoothing all rough edges on the National Digital Economy and E-Governance Bill 2025.
You can see the way you have done there.
The conversation cuts across the objective, scope, and application of the bill. The Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy, on his part, states that the federal government will continue to promote local technology and noted that Nigeria is on the path to significant progress in ICT.
I would like to again show deep appreciation to the entire committee members and our chairs for the support they've given to this bill. But I think in particular to the team that has also worked with the committee chairman to ensure that we could put this bill together, that we could take it across the country. I think some of them are here.
The gathering serves as an opportunity for the legislators who gave their submissions to ensure the final draft of the bill serves the purpose for which it was proposed. The bill, first of its kind in the country, seeks to address digital government systems and services, as well as skills development, regulations around artificial intelligence, amongst others.
The society is already digital, but the laws are analog. So we need to have an omnibus law that takes an existing legislation and replace anywhere that's analog with a digital equivalent. In the past, when they say a document has to be in its original form, it means paper. But then you can create records that are digital by their nature. So the law must recognize that.
I believe that once this is we pass it into law, it's going to create a lot of new jobs for our youthful population.
For Nigeria to experience improvement in its economy, the ICT and digital space must be given the needed attention for growth.
For the agenda that the president has set, that we must grow our economy to a $1 trillion economy, that will not be accomplished without technology and without the leadership of the people that you're seeing here today, which is why I believe that we should all appreciate the committees for leading this singular bill. This is the first time any African country will have a single piece of legislation to guide the digital economy. We've been saying it's the future, but it's already with us.
This retreat, therefore, is coming at an auspicious time and serves as one of the components to ensure the National Digital Economy and E-Governance Bill 2025 meets all requirements to increase productivity amongst Nigerians.
TotalEnergies Exploration and Production Nigeria Limited has donated 3 newly constructed hospital wards to the 6th Division Army Medical Center in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. The project, delivered in partnership with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL), is part of the company's commitment to improving healthcare services for the soldiers, their families, and other residents of the barracks community. Our correspondent Deborah Agbalama reports.
TotalEnergies Nigeria PLC has in recent times embarked on several community support projects across the Niger Delta. This time, the company is extending its gesture to officers and men of the Nigerian Army's 6th Division with the handover of newly built hospital wards at Bori Camp in Port Harcourt. The newly commissioned wards for children, women and men comprise 24 beds and are equipped with modern medical tools, including hospital couches, wheelchairs and patient monitoring devices. Speaking during the ceremony, the managing director and country chair of TotalEnergies said the project fulfills a promise made during the foundation laying in April 2024 and represents the company's commitment to safety and community support.
It's an important milestone because, the 6th Division has been of great support for us in our operations in one of our assets called OML 58. And, we've been here for decades and it's an unwavering and permanent support that we have gotten. So I think it's part of our duty also to care about the 6th Division, and that's somehow quite natural that for us we contribute to the well-being and the welfare of the 6th Division and their members.
In his remarks, the General Officer commanding 6th Division, Major General Emmanuel Emeka, commended TotalEnergies for its continued support to the Nigerian military, assuring that the military will continue to protect the company's operations and personnel in the Niger Delta.
The relationship has contributed significantly to peace, stability, and development in the division's area of responsibility. I wish to categorically assure
the MD, that 6th Division will take every necessary step to sustain and deepen this already existing relationship. We'll continue to provide unrelenting security support to safeguard the operations, your equipment, and your staff.
The event had in attendance senior military officers, officials of NNPCL, and management staff of TotalEnergies, who described the partnership as a model for public-private collaboration in enhancing welfare support for service members. The facility is expected to strengthen medical response capacity within the barracks and improve the well-being of soldiers and their families. Deborah Balama, Channels Television News.
In the world of sports, ahead of November the 13th FIFA World Cup playoffs clash against Gabon in Rabat, Morocco, the Super Eagles have officially opened training camp in Rabat. 10 players have arrived at the team's hotel this evening ahead of the first training session on Monday. Calvin Bassey, Alex Iwobi, Samuel Chukwueze, Tolu Arokodare, Olakunle Olusegun, Wilfred Ndidi, Moses Simon, William Troost Ekong, Benjamin Fredericks, and Chigozie Awaziem are the early birds in Rabat. Nasarawa United and Kwara United played a 1-1 draw in matchday 12 of the Nigeria Premier Football League played in Lafia earlier today. But despite the stalemate, the solid Miners maintained the lead at the top with 23 points from 12 league games, just one above Abia Warriors, who were held to a goalless draw by Enyimba International. Rangers International edged Shooting Stars by a lone goal. Chidozie Iwundu got the only goal in the game on the 27th minute. Ikorodu City got the only away in the day with a 2-0 win against hosts Warri Wolves. Wike Tourist beat visiting Niger Tornadoes 1-0. And Manchester City celebrated Pep Guardiola's 1,000th game in management with a statement 3-0 win over Liverpool to close to within 4 points of Premier League leaders Arsenal. Erling Haaland struck off missing an early penalty to head in his 99th Premier League goal before Nico Gonzalez's deflected effort and a wonder strike from Jeremy Doku confirmed City's status as Arsenal's major title rivals. But earlier in games, Aston Villa thrashed Bournemouth 4-0 to make it in 5 wins from their last 6 league games. Aston Villa thrashed Bournemouth 4-0 to make it, and then Nottingham Forest also beat relegation rivals Leeds 3-1 to secure the first Premier League victory of the reign. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz has made a solid start at the ATP Finals in Turin earlier today with a 7-6, 6-2 win over Alex de Minaur. This is the first time that the Spaniard had won his opening match at the finals. He lost to Alexander Zverev and Casper Ruud in the last 2 years. Alcaraz and de Minaur are in the Jimmy Connors group, which also features Taylor Fritz. Away from sports and outside our shores, at least 2 people have died in the Philippines after Typhoon Fong Wong made landfall. The eye of the storm hit Aurora province in Luzon, the Philippines' most populous island. The storm passed near the eastern Bicol region this morning before making its way past the Polillo Islands in the afternoon.
1 million people were evacuated before Typhoon Fong Wong hit. Known locally as Uwan, the typhoon approached Luzon Island, where authorities warned of destructive winds and high risk of life-threatening and damaging storm surge. Typhoon Fong Wong comes days after an earlier storm, Kalmegi, left devastation and killed over 200 people in the Philippines. The storm was upgraded to a typhoon before landfall, with sustained winds of around 185 kilometers per hour and gusts of 230 kilometers per hour. Footage from Virac municipality in Catanduanes province showed flooded streets, swaying trees as powerful winds and rain lashed the region. Residents living here had been urged to move to higher ground by Sunday morning. The civil aviation regulator in the Philippines closed several airports and almost 300 flights were cancelled. Fongwang is expected to weaken after making landfall, but is likely to remain a typhoon as it travels over Luzon, the Philippines' most populous island.
The Israeli government says it has received the body of Lieutenant Hadar Goldin, a soldier who was killed in an ambush by Hamas during a previous conflict in 2014 and whose body had been in Gaza since then. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he was expecting the remains to be returned, as Hamas had said it would hand over the body today. The Israeli military says remains of the 23-year-old was formally identified and will now be buried. He left behind parents, a sister, 2 brothers and a fiancé. Hamas has promised to hand over the body, and they did that today. The Israel Defense Forces says it is expressing deep condolence to the Goldin family. It continues to make every effort to return all the dead hostages, and it is prepared for the continued implementation of the ceasefire agreement. And the main news again. INEC today announced ABGA candidate and incumbent governor Chukwuma Soludo as winner of Anambra governorship election. President Tinubu has hailed Professor Soludo's re-election as proof of visionary leadership. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawade. Good night and have a wonderful week ahead.